Hey everybody, welcome back to an expert sit down. I'm Leslie Youngblood, and today I am joined by Robert Courtney from Robert Courtney and Associates. Thank you for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to speak with you.
Yeah, so we are crazy excited to kind of pick your masterful brain about social media marketing and branding. You are truly an expert on these topics. We have worked with you at Excelerate America on these things before. And so to bring your knowledge and to share a little bit of that with our viewers is going to be so immensely helpful for them. I know as we continue through the year, small businesses are struggling. Something we have heard time and time again from them, whether it's been a pandemic or this economic time or not, is marketing and social media. And they know they need to be on it, but they are intimidated and don't quite know how to use it or what it is specifically. So
Right.
I would kind of like to start with first social media and just go over some of the basics for them, and we can kind of take it from there. So my first kind of question really is, why is social media marketing so important for small businesses?
Well, first of all, it's free. As a small business owner, in most cases, you're starting on a shoestring budget, or
Right.
you don't have a ton of free resources. So
Mm-hmm.
with social media being in most cases free, I mean, I think that's the number one reason that any small business will want to hop on it. But beyond that, I think the true advantage of social is that it's a space for you to try things. Like, it's a space for you to develop and find your identity. It's a space for you to grab data, build your network, and everything that we do, everything that we'll talk about probably today is all predicated on an acronym that we created called ATACC.
Oh.
So ATACC stands for audience, trust, attention, content, and consistency. So right now is social media. Social media is the thing of our generation. It's the tool that's most popular when it comes to marketing. But applying that ATACC acronym, it really applies to whatever the tool is of that time, whether it's radio, whether it's TV and commercials, whether it's billboards, whether it's 20 years from now and it's voice and it's, AR,
Hologram.
yeah, all these different things. The goal is always to build an audience,
Right.
get them to trust you, figure out ways to capture people's attention, and then put out content consistently. And if you do that, usually you can be successful. So I feel like social media is the tool of today. And if you use it to accomplish those 5 things, you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And many small businesses or even people with side hustles might not realize, like, you can achieve all those things for free with social media. So, and there is a time where you can spend the money, which we will dive into a little bit later. But I think you're so on point with that. It's really the tool of today. And I feel like it's not going anywhere. If anything, it just continues to evolve and change and assimilate more into our lives. And so to be able to get those data points too, you said data, which I also think for small business owners, when data is so incredibly important, and they might think, or they might not know, who's our main customer, who pays attention to us. And it's a free way for you to get data on the people that are interested in you and your product.
Right. And see, I look at it, that's definitely a great way to look at it. I look at it in reverse, however, because I think the frustration for a lot of people when it comes to social media is they don't know who their customer is. They don't know what people want, what people like. And so my thing is, use social to figure out yourself, or use social to figure out your business, right? And if you do the things that feel native to you and feel organic to you and that you enjoy, then your tribe or community begins to create itself, because people identify with the things that they like, right? So I feel like it's a great way to figure out our own identity, our own brands, whether that's a personal brand or whether that's the brand and the culture of a company. And then as we do that, we start to bring in an audience that's responding to our message, and then we
Mm-hmm.
can use that data to decide who our real target market is.
Totally. That reminds me, one of my favorite small brands is this brand called Tibby. And, you know, they are probably played the game like big department stores, et cetera, et cetera. And then COVID hit and they lost orders, they lost money, and they started doing what I love, these weekly style sessions where they like show you their clothes and how to wear it, and not just their clothes. And they have created this immense following, and their business is like better than ever. They're like, we're not dealing with these department stores anymore. We're doing it our way. And they don't need, and so they just get lemonade out of lemons. But like, I think any small business can learn a lot of lessons from what you just said, because, and that's like a prime example of that.
100%. And see, it's because they tapped into their authentic selves. Like, and that's like, everyone is so afraid to put themselves out there and to talk about the things that they love to talk about. I'll give you an example. It's human nature, because like growing up, I've always been able to cut hair. Like I've always been able to generate income by cutting like my friend's hair and, you know, my dad's hair and my brother's hair. It came so natural to where I never even thought about it as a business.
Sure.
I didn't think about like, this could be a career. Like this could be a future. Like I can open up. It's like, it's too easy. I don't want to make money doing something that's come so easy. Right. And so it's like, it was like, my thought process should have been more along the lines of, because it comes so easy, because it comes so natural, and I love it so much, I should have been more apt to go out and create something around that. But, you know, based on programming and, you know, the people around you, for whatever reason, we push against the grain, and we're more reluctant to put out the things that we love and the things that come natural to us. So I always admonish the people that we work with, do the things that you love, do the things that, even if you don't necessarily see the writing on the wall of how you'll monetize that particular passion or skill or the thing about your business that you love to do, if you put it out there, you'll be surprised how people will gravitate toward it, because chances are other people are wanting the thing that you want to put out, you know.
Sure. So what do you say to somebody that, like, I don't have time for social media, a small business owner, like, and small business owners wear so many hats. What do you say to them to, if anything?
I say, if you're a small business, and especially if you're a small business just getting started, you can't survive without it. Like it went from being an optional resource to a must-have resource, right? And so if you don't exist, you may be able to not exist on social media per se, but I think that, you know, votes the question, what is social media, right?
So, which was one of my next questions.
So I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
So if you're online, if you have a digital presence, maybe a website, it may be YouTube if you don't consider YouTube social media, it may be Google Ads. If you have a digital presence, then you can exist. But you can't exist without some type of presence. So it has to be social media, it has to be some type of website. And the way we look at social media is the distribution channels to the place you want people to end up at. So you have a website where you sell products or services. If you have a physical location where you sell products or services, you're using your social media, your distribution channels, the way you inform people about what you have, the way you communicate with your potential clients and customers and audience. That's the purpose that social media serve for us. And so if you don't have a way to communicate with your people who are now looking for the information, see, once upon a time, pre-social media, we did things to get people's attention using channels that already existed, so to speak. So you would do a commercial on a television station, or you would do a commercial on a radio station. You would put your ad on a billboard. So these were pre-existing things that people would drive by, or they'd be watching the show and they would see the ad.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the ability, everyone has the ability to go out and seek that attention.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no more waiting for the commercial to pop up. The commercial is coming to find you, or the product or service is coming to find you through ads, through news feeds, through stories, through all these ways. So basically, if you are not on social, you're not in the game. You don't even have a chance to shoot a shot. You don't have a chance to throw a touchdown because you're not even playing.
Gotcha.
So
it's so true. It really is so true. So when we talk about social media marketing, I think in even the term marketing, small business owners will say, oh, I don't have a budget, right? Or like, but social media marketing per se is just getting on the platform. Like you don't have to spend money to create Facebook ads right away, right? Like you can just create your presence and build and be there without spending money.
There's so many brands that don't use social media ads. They don't spend money on ads on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or any of these channels. And most of the time, if you're a business that's been successful pre-social, you already have a built-in following or audience. Maybe you've built a email database. Maybe you have a huge SMS database, right? Maybe you have a large amount of traffic that comes into your store, your establishment, within your neighborhood. You have an audience. Like when I talk about ATACC, that acronym, that audience is your audience in all of these different places, not just your followers, not just your email database. That could be the people that consistently patronize your physical location. Is wherever your sphere of influence exists would be considered your audience. So if you're thinking about or questioning whether or not you have the budget to do social, that's really an irrelevant question, especially if you have an existing audience, because really all you're doing is consistently communicating your content through your news feed or in a place where people can come to find out what it is you're offering. The biggest thing people talk about is they're not reaching the amount of people that they want to reach. Well, if the content exists and you have other ways to create traffic, then when you let them know that those channels will exist, then they can come and they can see the content and the information that you're putting out. So I don't think not having a marketing budget is an excuse to not have social media presence.
Right. And maybe a few months ago, a friend of mine reached out to me asking if I knew somebody that does social media because there was a small business that needed to do it. And I'm like, I don't think they need to hire somebody. They can just do it. And I mean, like, it doesn't have to be an outside person if you just make time to do it and show what you're doing at your business. Like, it doesn't have to be some professionally shot campaign. Of course you can, but you have told us at Excelerate America too, people want to see who you are and how you operate and what you stand for 100%. Just in those natural moments. And so
I respect the question of, I don't have time to do it more than I respect I don't have the money or the budget. Because those are two different things. Like social media, depending on where you want presence at, it can be time consuming. Sure. Like that's definitely a fact. So
a black hole.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a matter of how much, how often, but to not have it at all, I don't think there's really an excuse beyond being prideful or not realizing how impactful it can be for your business.
Gotcha. I agree. So now let's say that you're a small business that is on Facebook and you are looking to do more with that, or Instagram or what have you, LinkedIn, and they do have a little bit of money, or even if maybe they think, oh, well, I would, but I don't know. You have like a four-pronged Facebook ad approach that we've discussed before. And I know our team was just like, wow, like that's, yes, okay. Like it's affordable, it's simple, it's effective. And so I would love for you to kind of review and discuss this four-pronged Facebook ad approach with us right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the hundreds and hundreds of ads that we ran without having this approach in place, we've been able to kind of analyze those and basically discover that out of all the recommendations that Facebook give you, because these 4 ads that I'll talk about, they're not the only way that you can run ads. However,
Right.
we've just found them to be the most effective, and they're usually most effective when they're ran together, when they're ran at the same time. So that includes a Facebook Messenger ad.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody knows Facebook Messenger. It's become a primary tool for a lot of people just in communicating, especially if you're communicating within the Facebook platform. So if you spend time, and Facebook was really smart, they are actually 2 separate entities. Facebook Messenger and Facebook operate on 2 completely different platforms. So that means you could be inside of your Facebook app for your news feed and all the other information, and you could be having a conversation through your messenger without the 2 interfering with one another.
Right.
So you can run ads that will pop up through those messenger conversations, which is the equivalent of, imagine having a text message conversation, right, and then you have a promotion or an ad pop up mid-text, so like that could be.
That's probably coming.
Yeah, I'm about to say, it probably is, but that would be a good way to really explain that, the power of that. So you have your messenger ad, you have your page like ad, which everybody's goal should be to grow their audience. So Facebook does a really good job, and probably the best job at doing advertisements that encourage people to like your page if you use their page like sponsor ad tool. So this ad is very simple. It's put in very unique positions on the Facebook feed, so people are more encouraged. And it's also being geared toward people that are, if you like this brand, you'll probably like this brand. And so it encourages people to go ahead and hit the button out of curiosity to find out if you have something of interest to them. Then you have your boosted post ad, which is usually a post that has already generated interest organically without any money spent. And you recognize that. A lot of times Facebook will prompt you and say, hey, this post is really performing well. If you spend this amount of money, you can reach this amount of people. Those facts are very important to pay attention to. Facebook, most websites, if they're encouraging you to do something, is money driven. Like they're just trying to get you to spend a couple extra dollars. When Facebook gives you those prompts, that is real accurate information. And usually if they suggest you do it, it's a good idea to follow their suggestion, because you will usually get the results that they're promising. So that's a boosted or boosted ad on your page. And then the last one is a web link click ad. So that basically means you're getting ready to direct someone outside of Facebook to an external link for purchasing your product, finding out more information, or whatever your objective is with the landing page or the link that you sent them to. So those are the 4 ads that we found to be the most effective, especially when they're ran together. And usually if you can create some uniformity between what the ads are talking about, you can create this kind of customer journey or customer experience where, someone sees your boosted posts, they decide to message you, which creates intrigue about what your page is about, and so on and so forth. So, the goal is to really grab somebody and then immerse them into your brand in a very short window so that they become a follower and they start to come to visit your page, so that you don't have to run an ad to get that person anymore. Now they're getting your content organically.
Right. And I think you mentioned, would you suggest starting $25 each for those ads?
Yeah.
So it's like
So
$100
so,
maybe to start?
yeah, so we normally say anywhere between 100 and 200, 200
Okay.
being the high end, $100 being the low end.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just clueless, like, I don't really know what my budget should be, we say start at $100 and then divide that $100 into $25 across each ad, hit the start button, and then as you get more experience, you can gauge the effectiveness of the ad mid ad cycle. So, you could be $5 or $6 in, $10 in, and realize that, you know what, this isn't working for me. Pause it, change it, stop it. But at $25, usually, it's not enough or so much to where you can't afford to lose it.
Right.
It gives you an opportunity to really test the ad set to find out whether or not it'll be successful. And then, sometimes those four ads, out of the four ads, maybe two ads work really well. Then you can go back to the drawing board and say, I'm going to throw those two ads away completely and just focus on running all of my money against these two particular ads. So it's an opportunity to try and test and see what works for you, because I'll be honest, every industry on Facebook works differently.
Sure.
Hospitality performs better than tech. Tech performs better than apparel, apparel performs better than tech. Like, it just depends on what space you're in, and the Facebook algorithms tend to like certain products better than other products. So
I know we've talked about that too, where I think people too, like, if your ads don't work, it's not because you wrote or did a bad ad. It's just the Facebook mystery, right? Like, you just don't know. So change it.
And there's so many variables. There's so many variables. And we found that out with EA, just changing the main sentence that pops up when they see the ad, or tweaking the picture, or does your picture have a copy on it? Is the copy too big? All these little nuances that could affect the outcome.
Yeah. And I love that so much, because even Facebook experts and social media experts are like, it's a game, a testing game. Like, I have the knowledge, but you have to execute on it, and then maybe it will change it. And so it's all just like the little tiny tweaks to get something that might work for you. So if they do these 4 ads and like, well, it didn't work, and then they're like bumped, like, no, it's not because you shouldn't be doing this. It's, you have to change it now and try something new. And because it's a lightweight financial lift, I think that's, then they can try something again and do it for 2 weeks or a month, and then stop, and then look and see. And so to give themselves the opportunity to learn more about their audience. And one thing we learned too at EA when we were doing audiences is sometimes the national audience is less than the local audience, or then you add in different cities, and that's a bigger audience than like a whole general area. And you're like, what? But it's just about changing those sets and just trying to figure out what might work, and testing and rolling with it.
100%. Facebook has created the most powerful information capture in the history of the world, probably, right? So it's us really trusting that they know our audience better than we do, and they know how people are going to respond based on their test and what they've done, so the only way for us to really pull that information is that we try and try and try, and it'll keep populating different answers. And it's the only tool that I know of, maybe there's more out there, but I don't know any other tools that will allow you to test, stop, test, try more, pay more money, take money away. Usually if you're going to get like really, really good results, you have to make a really big financial commitment, and you have to do that over an extended period of time.
Right.
When you talk about like PR companies and agencies, and you talk about experts, normally it's like, for you to get me to do something for a certain amount of time, you have to pay a certain amount of money. And with Facebook, if you take a few days or hours even to read and educate yourself on these tools, they're all things that you can do yourself. It's just, do you want to put that energy and effort toward it to learn it and understand it a little bit. And then you have so much power and flexibility in how you leverage those tools.
That's right. So those 4 Facebook ads that every small business owner should try are Messenger, boosted post, page like ad, and website visitor ad, right?
Yes, that's it. And if you go to your Facebook page, there's a little button says promote. You hit that button, it will give you 6 to 8 options, I believe, in different types of ads that you can run. But those would be the 4 that if you're just starting out and you're kind of trying to find your way, those would be the 4 that I would start with and then kind of build from there.
Awesome. Robert, what do you think is the future of social media for small businesses? What do you think is going to happen with that?
Kind of like you mentioned, I think it will continue to change and evolve. I think, a lot of people worried about Facebook being like MySpace or, being a platform that will eventually kind of dissolve or go away or people will lose interest. I just feel like Facebook has proven time and time again that they are experts at reinventing themselves. So whether that's in acquiring new platforms,
like Instagram, right? Didn't they acquire Instagram?
Yeah, like acquiring Instagram, evolving these platforms. Instagram went after TikTok or went after Snapchat,
right?
Failed in that acquisition. So then they just created their own Snapchat.
Yeah, they sure
came out with stories. Yes. And then TikTok became popular. And I don't think there was a move to acquire TikTok. However, they created Reels now, and Reels is basically TikTok, so.
Which is basically Facebook, or like they're all connected.
Exactly. So, I don't think it's going nowhere. I think it'll continue to change in the way we use it. And I think creatives will continue to evolve in how we use it to maximize the results for our business and find ways to continue building audiences, because that's all this is, a big game of building an audience and then creating influence over that audience to drive traffic to your product, business, or service. So
do you think there's a social media channel that's underrated when it comes to small businesses using it?
I think they're all underrated by small businesses, honestly. But to answer your question specifically, I do think platforms like Pinterest, that isn't necessarily a social media. A lot of social media experts wouldn't consider Pinterest a social media platform because there's not really two-way engagement.
Sure.
However, Pinterest is incredible. Like the amount of activity that you can bring to a page. They allow you to run ads. You could try and test products and aesthetics and gain interest in information about the audience that you're probably going after through Pinterest. It's one of the biggest platforms out there. It's definitely in the top 5 or 6 platforms. And I think people kind of look over it, like they don't realize the power of it. So I would say Pinterest is probably like the most underrated platform. I think the platform that business owners are now overlooking is TikTok because they don't understand it. They don't.
Yeah, and I think they think it's for kids, right? Like, or it's a young demographic. Or what do you say to them if they say that? What's your rebuttal?
Instagram started off as a platform for kids. That was a young demographic. Facebook started off as a platform that was for kids.
You're right.
So what happens is these platforms, they mature. The audience grow up. They go from being kids to family people to business owners, and they create purchasing power. And then now you have a new Instagram in your hands, and now there's an influx of activity to these platforms. But at that point, the algorithm is overwhelmed, and you're not getting the same organic reach that you would have gotten if you were kind of like an early adopter or somebody that hopped in right away. So like my formula has been since MySpace, my formula has always been the same. A new platform come out, I'd immerse myself in it. It's like right now I got close to 10,000 followers on TikTok. just because I like pounded it super hard, but I haven't been on it now in probably 3 or 4 months.
Gotcha.
I don't necessarily need it at the moment, but if time comes where we need to leverage that platform,
right.
I'll know it, I'll understand it, I'll be able to hop right in and, be able to navigate and help others navigate, which is, what our job is, to help other people navigate social media landscapes and teach people how to use the platform.
Right. That's fascinating. Thanks. That's super. I feel like we could talk about social media all day, but I want to pivot now to talk branding.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you work with a lot of small businesses to cultivate branding. And we talked with a previous small business owner. They spent 2 years developing their mascot, Dawn Verbrugge from Jotful, because it was in the creative space and just feels like nobody really knows or puts the importance on branding when you're a small business, developing tone and look and feel. And so you work with a lot of local businesses here in Detroit on some of this stuff too. So how do you help small businesses hone in on their branding to stand out and market themselves?
So the reason that I went in the direction of branding, because, there's thousands of social media gurus and there's thousands of social media experts. And I just felt like a lot of people put emphasis on content and they put emphasis on posting a certain amount of times a day or on certain platforms, or using the ads a certain type of way. Usually if you're a social media expert or a guru, those are the things you're talking about. Normally they don't cross over into this lane of branding, which is more about aesthetic and logo and personality and messaging and culture. And so what I realized really fast was, if your messaging and your branding isn't on par with the audience that you're trying to reach, then none of it works. Like it all kind of, it never reaches its full potential. And so when I figured that part out, it was like, we have to get more into the branding arena to help evaluate these clients before we start their social campaign, because if their branding isn't where it needs to be, we're going to struggle to get their messaging and their conversions and their audience to grow and all the different objectives that particular client might have. So the initial conversation kind of starts with, what are the characteristics of your company that you're trying to communicate to the world, essentially. And we feel that you can't have too many objectives, like 2, maybe 3 at the most. And if you get beyond that, then a lot of times your messaging and your culture gets lost in the sauce, so to speak, and people aren't sure who you are and what it is that you stand for. So a lot of our branding is conversation around culture and characteristics of the company that stand out. And then, we might get into, if they need it, we might get into tones and aesthetic and build brand boards, which Pinterest is a great place for that.
Sure.
Build brand boards that identify with the look and feel of what they're trying to communicate. But it all starts with, it's all a part of the messaging though. Like we want you to come to that page, go to that website, and when you read and you look, you feel something. Like it's about like, what type of emotion are we trying to create with the content that we're putting out? And if we can capture that, then I think that's really the goal of a great brand.
I love that. And I love too that even before you do social media, you have to check your brand. You have to make sure your branding is up to par, because if you then go and do social ads, you won't get the results that you are looking for. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot before you even get started, essentially.
Yeah. I learned a long time ago, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No worries.
I learned like most great PR agents or PR companies or public relations specialists, like they won't take a client if their brand isn't up to a certain standard, because it's your identity, it's your presentation. Like, presentation is everything.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong way to create your presentation. Like, it's your presentation, it's the presentation of your company. You know what you want that to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are shooting for a certain audience, or you're trying to appeal to a certain audience, then if you expect to get results from that, then your brand presentation have to match the aesthetic or the look and feel of the audience that you're trying to capture. So that's the conversation that has to happen. And it can go one or two ways. Like, the way I want it to look and feel is more important than the audience that I'm going after. And that's totally fine. But usually the goal is to find a happy medium and then kind of build upon that.
I like that, because you can bring your uniqueness and then mix it with your target audience, and then your brand should be somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
I think that's super important and helpful for people.
And it's kind of before you move on, it's kind of like an action word too.
Yeah.
And that's very important, because I think branding doesn't stop. Like, it is your daily consistent messaging and activity to really create the trust and the credibility of what a brand is supposed to be. It's like, we could have the exact same product. You never post. I post every day, all the time, consistently, because they know more about me. They've tapped more into my personality. The likelihood that they purchase my product becomes a lot greater, because I never stopped kind of showcasing who I was and what my brand was about. So,
especially I feel like if your product or service is more maybe of a higher end situation, or like something that's more of a financial lift for people, and they'll feel more comfortable giving you their money if they feel like they know you, as opposed
it's emotional.
It really is. We're all just some humans. We're just looking for that connection. Like, essentially, and branding starts, and then you get the social media, and all these are components of looking to make that connection between your business and your audience. It's so fascinating.
People buy from people they like.
Yeah. So what are some inexpensive branding strategies you suggest? I know you mentioned Pinterest, and I love that idea. So, or maybe like looking at, if I'm Susie's Pancake House, okay, and I don't know, how do I assess and audit my branding to determine whether or not it's good, and then what tools can I use to get to where I would like it to be? I know you mentioned Pinterest, which I've tried.
So
what would be that process, Robert?
First of all, if you're Susie's Pancake House, like, that's super simple, because it needs to be all about Susie.
Okay, not about the pancakes.
I would make it all about Susie. People want to buy from people they like. So
that is true.
You want to create, the personality of Susie. But that's really what like right now, the way social is set up, especially like Instagram and Facebook, the bigger platforms, even TikTok, which is the fastest growing platform ever. These are all personality driven platforms.
Right.
So what that means is you need to showcase the personalities of people that are either leading the brand, associated with the brand, or buying from the brand. So my best tips and my best advice would be to build whatever it is around people and people's personalities, and really cater to that. And you'll be surprised how, regardless of what the product or service is, if you're building around the people, how people will engage and respond much faster than if you're building around the product or service itself. So that's probably my best branding tip. And then if you're trying to curate content for your pages, I would take the three-pronged approach of three things that, three characteristics of your company that you want to be known for, and then build out your content based on those three things, which will in turn give it a consistent flow and a consistent look. And then we mentioned Pinterest, but like, you could use Google images and Google searches to kind of, grab inspiration.
Right.
I still feel like it should all be geared around the people that's actually involved though. So if you are using those platforms, use them for inspiration and then try to recreate what you found through those search engines with people in your organization or with yourself, you know, and photographers or videographers or whatnot. So
who off the top of your head, Robert, is doing that well with their branding, is embodying more of a personal touch and the personal behind the brand?
There's so many people, like off the top of my head, I would say Gary Vee.
Oh,
Like Gary Vee would be,
he's all personality.
I was about to say, like, he would probably be the best example, like at the top of the mountain as far as that goes. But I think it's a really good example because Gary Vee runs a massive organization that does incredible work with Bud Light and you know, NASCAR, like all these huge organizations. But when you think about Gary Vee, all we think about is the big personality that we see on Instagram. Well, believe it or not, that personality is the pipeline that drives all of his business activity. And if you really delve deep in, like, if you're really like a Gary Vee fan and you look at his videos and the stuff that he talks about that's not necessarily on, like, say, his Instagram, he talks about it in depth, how this is a pipeline or distribution channel that he uses to garner attention from these people because his following is so massive and so many people respond to his personality. He's easily able to acquire business opportunities and people who are interested in his services because of what he's doing on the front end. You know, so that's an example of like how you can really use your personality to, you know, acquire new leads, new opportunities for your company.
I love that. And I think something too, I like wrote it down, like it's about personality and leaning into your personality. Like you think back to before social media, TV, even radio, like you had these local mom and pop shops. We still have those, right? But like the thing that keeps people coming back is because they got to know the people working there. And back in my youth, when I worked at Starbucks, people would come and it was like you would create a relationship with the people that would come in. And Starbucks was very much like cultivate the relationship and engage. And that's how we're going to set ourselves apart. And that's why local coffee shops, because you're like, I want to go see Joe today, or hey, Sam, how's your family, right? And so it's almost like an extension of that, like in like the 21st century way. It's like
it's the exact same. It's the, to me, emotionally, it's the exact same concept being, you know, done across the internet. So the people that do it the best, that combine kind of like both of those things. Like I have a coffee shop maybe 5 minutes from my house, but I don't know anybody there. I have a coffee shop that's 15 minutes from my house, but they've made me feel like family. Like every time I come in, they greet me by my first name.
Do you want to shout them out here, Robert?
Yeah. No, I'm saying it as an example.
Oh, okay. Oh, you don't have that? That doesn't really exist?
I'm just saying, like, I don't even drink coffee. I drink hot chocolate, but I
need coffee.
don't drink coffee. But I'm just saying, the average person is gonna travel that extra 10 minutes because of the relationship that's been cultivated. So definitely something to keep in mind. Social media is really like a big word of mouth network. And you know, like pre-social media, you would call your neighbor and ask who cut their grass.
Right.
And, you know, ask them, can they send that person over to your yard next time they come? And that's how that person would get new business.
Right.
And that still is a big part of people's business nowadays, like word of mouth. But, you know, Facebook has become an extension of that because it's like when we tag somebody, essentially that's just calling Susie to the door and saying, hey, you know, I got this great guy who did an excellent job on my yard. If you ever need yard work, you know, he's the person to use. And you just feel, you know what, since he did Susie's yard so well, I'm gonna have him come and do mine.
Right.
So,
Definitely. So tell me, do you have any big branding no-nos? Like anything that's like, oh, or you see like,
yeah.
I don't know, pink and yellow together and you're like, oh, or I mean, anything like that, or
From a branding standpoint, no. Like
no rules.
I think there's no rules. I think consistency trumps
Hmm.
any rules that anybody would come up with. I think there's an audience for just about everything. Um, as far as no-nos in general across social, I just feel like anything that is 100% um, buy
Hmm.
with no give.
Hmm.
I just feel
Mm-hmm.
like it works. It could definitely work, but I feel like you're missing out on a bigger opportunity,
Gotcha.
because social is supposed to be social.
Social.
So the engagement piece is what really makes brands blossom, and it
Mm.
really, I think, catapults brands bigger. Like the example you gave earlier of the company that had to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Started
The
doing
clothing company that I love.
Yeah, and they started doing the tutorials. Like they're giving their time, their advice, their with no necessary, like there's no direct payment or
Right.
conversion right in front of their face.
Right.
But then all of a sudden they're having their biggest,
Yeah.
sales ever.
Mm-hmm. They're
So
selling through stuff.
yeah, it's a direct correlation between giving when it comes to social media activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, so if you have some time, I'd love to do some quick hits for you with you
Absolutely. You got
and quick fire round. Robert, are you ready? All right.
That was good.
Finish this phrase. When it comes to social media, every small business owner should.
Have Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Best marketing advice you've ever received.
Be your authentic self.
I like it. What is the most interesting thing you've helped a small business do with social, and why?
The most interesting thing, we did a grand opening for a restaurant using only Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and we launched their Facebook page, grew it to 4,000 people within a month's time.
Wow.
Using one ad that we promoted for $10.
Wow.
And a sold out grand opening.
That's amazing. See, $10, that's all
$10.
you need. 4,000 people in a sold out grand opening.
Yes.
That is amazing. I love that. Well,
pretty incredible.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robert. That's all my questions. Anything else you would like to add or share with our watchers before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me on Instagram. That is my favorite place to connect with people, is Robert Courtney Collins, all one word, on Instagram. And shoot me a DM message if you have any questions when it comes to social branding, Facebook, Instagram, any social media platform. I'll love to connect and talk trade secrets. And then I will be launching a social media masterclass over the next couple months. So
Awesome.
follow me on Instagram to get information about when that'll actually be available. But yeah, I would love to help anybody that I possibly can. So
Awesome. That's right, you guys. Make sure you follow Robert. You don't want to miss out on that. Thank you so much for joining us for another Expert Sit Down. I'm Leslie Youngblood. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first to know about more amazing Expert Sit Downs, to tap all these brilliant minds to help make your business even better. Thank you, Robert, so much. We appreciate it.
thank you for having me. See you.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.